Okay. Whoo! Lord. My goodness gracious. All right. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire. My name is Sydney Williams. If you were planning on joining us on YouTube, thank you for your patience. We are on Facebook now. So this is the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire, which is a fundraiser for the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center, as well as the American Diabetes Association and RAINN. The American Diabetes Association is on a mission to improve the lives of people living with diabetes, whether that's type 1, type 2, or the or pre-diabetes. And RAINN is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization, and we've decided to allocate 10% of the proceeds from this event for each organization. So 10% to the American Diabetes Association and 10% to RAINN. So as we get going here, a little quick fundraising update. As of right now, we have raised $8,020, and we are on a mission to raise $30,000 for the first round of construction for the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. So far, we have 45 donors. Thank you guys so much. And we've had 63 guests on this talk. This is the last night of 20 nights that we've been doing this, and it has been so magical. So tonight we have some great guests. We have Judith Sadora from Sadora Wellness, or Sadora Wellness on Instagram. She works with Evoke Therapy. We also have Miss Buffy Wilde. She is going to be doing some tarot readings. And if you haven't had a tarot reading from a drag queen before, you are in for a treat. And we also have Jess Fiedler, who will be our Hiking My Feelings family member tonight. And last but certainly not least, our group gratitude circle towards the end of the program. So thank you so much for everybody that's donated. Thank you to everybody who's showing up and joining us here. Here we go. So what do we do when we're at this little event? We read the book. So tonight I'm going to be reading from the epilogue of Hiking My Feelings, Stepping into the Healing Power of Nature. I wrote this book, and this is the last part of the book where everything gets tied up with a pretty bow. So if you aren't familiar with my story, this book covers the 2 hikes that we did across the Trans-Catalina Trail, which goes 38.5 miles across Catalina Island. Catalina Island is off the coast of Los Angeles, California, and both of those hikes radically changed my life. The first one is in December 2016, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done physically. And the second one was in June of 2018, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done emotionally. So up until now in the book, I've connected all the dots on the things that happened to me earlier in my life, and now I am going to be sharing the epilogue, which is where I further continue to connect the dots between how trauma even happens, where mine came from, and how we can move forward. So this reading is a bit on the longer side, so sit down, grab a blanket if you're cold, grab an air conditioner if you're hot, grab a beverage, here we go. What do I wish I knew when I was younger? What kind of support or advice do I wish I had after my assault? And how are all of these different events related? If I could leave you with 3 takeaways from my experience, here's what I'd say. Number 1, get help, treat the wound. Trauma is not a scratch, it is an open wound. If I were next to you while you were reading this with a compound fracture on my arm, bone out of the skin, you would put down the book and get help, maybe even take me to the hospital. If I were bleeding out next to you, you'd call an ambulance. This is an emergency. But we don't do that with emotional trauma. We're all out here bleeding out emotionally in one way or another. And instead of responding with the same urgency as we do for a physical emergency, we tell folks to suck it up. Don't cry. We have an unrealistic expectation of what it means to return to life, love, work, and our families after a traumatic event. We don't have any healthy examples to follow when it comes to making a full recovery from one of these events. So we carry the guilt with us as we try to get back to normal as soon as we can. If we're lucky, and I use the word lucky loosely here, we start learning how to cope in healthy ways at an early age. In a dream world, our parents have done the work and can identify the signs of trauma in our behavior and our reactions when we're young. If we're lucky, they teach us how to cope in healthy ways and how to process, feel, and express emotions with clarity. How many parents do you know who have done and are doing the work? How is your relationship with your parents? If you had a hard childhood, have you faced that and worked through it? If you can't face your own trauma, how are we going to help the folks closest to us through theirs without projecting our own fears and insecurities onto them? Honestly, most of the weight in my backpack was something someone else was scared of that I internalized as my own fear. Now that I have that awareness, it's on me to do the work to unlearn these fears and understand how they've impacted my life. However, it is not my fault that I observed and learned these things at a very young age. Children are brilliant, and for the first several years we're on this planet, we're a sponge for our surroundings. If you aren't blessed with a family who's done the work and can help you cope, maybe traditional clinical therapy methods are an option. Even so, bad therapists are a thing. It takes some time to find one that you feel comfortable sharing with, and that's assuming you even have a choice. Adverse reactions and side effects of medications are also an issue. Pharmaceutical therapies come with so many side effects these days, I often wonder if they're helping us or hurting us. My friend Chris, the veteran who took his life at the beginning of 2014, had recently been to the VA, and they were adjusting the dosing on his PTSD medication. It is possible that his suicide was tied to the dosing of the medication, a side effect of the drug. We shouldn't live in a world where that is even a remote possibility. The medications that are supposed to help you should not come with side effects like suicidal tendencies or death. Traditional therapy methods and medications aren't accessible to everyone, so what else can we do? We aren't naturally equipped to know how to handle this, and few of us ever learn how. We have to start treating mental illness with the same urgency we do our physical wellness. Until then, our trauma will continue to manifest as mental and physical diseases, and we will continue to be plagued by things that wouldn't stand a chance of harming us as much as they do if we weren't so afraid to talk about them. That's the thing about trauma. It's so taboo in the society. We demonize it, weaponize it, and it is killing us. For years, I assumed that I was broken, that I was the only one feeling these things, experiencing these thoughts. TV shows, movies, books, they all confirm my brokenness. It wasn't until I started sharing these stories with close friends that I realized I wasn't alone. Before I could even think about talking to my friends about it, however, I had to talk to myself about it. I had to get to the point where I could even admit that I was raped. I had done such a good job of slut-shaming myself that it took hearing other friends speak about the most violent moments of their lives before I could even wrap my head around what happened to me. I had to reckon with my own shame and denial, my own internalized misogyny, my own prejudices and biases to realize that I was a victim of a crime. Once I admitted that to myself, then I could start to transition from being in complete denial to understanding why it happened, but to understanding why what happened to me wasn't my fault. With that came unpacking the negative self-talk. Once I realized that my struggles with body image, weight loss, and unhealthy coping mechanisms were beliefs, fears, and behaviors that I adopted when I was a child, and then later in life in a state of trauma, I could start to define a life for myself. I could reclaim my power. I hated the idea of being a victim. Being a survivor felt more like an accurate description. When I claimed my status as a survivor of sexual assault, I felt like anything was possible. If I could navigate life in a trauma-induced haze, as well as I had for the past 12 years, what was possible when I had a fuller understanding of myself? What was possible when I understood my triggers? What was possible if I was brave enough to remove myself from the comfort of the struggle? What was possible if I believed the hype? I do believe we're all wearing one of these backpacks and we're all carrying different things. Sexual assault isn't the only kind of trauma, and I hope that piece of trauma isn't in your backpack. However, considering someone is sexually assaulted every 73 seconds in America, there's a good chance you are carrying this too. Maybe in your pack, it's the weight of your lived experience. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, fat phobia, ableism, and the crimes that stem from those fears, insecurities, and projections. Divorce, separations, breakups, and infidelity are traumatic events. Maybe you lost a friend, a sibling, loved one, or child to gun violence, or perhaps you survived a shooting. If you served in the military, if you had to make choices on behalf of our country, I can't even begin to fathom. And the weight of protecting the entire nation is a heavy load to carry. Perhaps it's taking care of your parents or other loved ones. Maybe you witnessed or survived domestic violence. It could be losing a child, loved one, family member, or friend, whether that's a freak accident, a terminal illness, or natural causes. It could be bullying, narcissistic abuse, fertility troubles, manipulative partners or family members, or hostile work environments with inconsiderate colleagues. When we kill the stigma that trauma makes us broken and start to identify trauma as evidence of common ground, we can move mountains. This is a trail we can and should be walking together. I'm not saying we should celebrate our shared trauma, and we certainly don't want to dwell in it, but at its very core, it shows us how similar our struggles are. Since everyone has trauma, and trauma isn't a competition, it should be abundantly clear. We are all more alike than different. When we start prioritizing emotional trauma with the same urgency we do for physical trauma, we can make significant shifts in how we see ourselves, show up for ourselves, and how we show up in our communities, both locally and globally. Number 2, get outside. I tried healing myself physically in a gym. It didn't work. I figured I was a Division I athlete in college. I'll just do what I did then and apply that workout style to my adult life. I'm sorry, do you have 6 hours a day to work out in a gym? I sure don't. And even when I do have that kind of time, I'm not going to the gym, I'm going on a hike. I had to purposefully craft a life that allows me time to be healthy because the standard path in this country, at least the one I was set forth on, doesn't allow for it. Let's talk about why the gym isn't my jam. Maybe you love how you feel after a difficult workout, but hate going to the gym too. And if that's the case, maybe this will resonate. How are you supposed to find holistic healing in a fitness center? Assuming you work indoors, this is practically an extension of your office. No fresh air, no natural light, so it doesn't feel like you're changing up the scenery and keeping things fresh. With folks grunting and dropping weights, that can be triggering for folks who have survived a gun violence or have trauma around loud noises. This can send your body into a state of fight or flight. Every time you go to the gym, you jump when someone drops a weight. Of course, you're going to hate going there, even if you love the activities. That doesn't mean you're lazy. That's your body trying to send messages to your brain that there are better ways to get a good workout, ones that don't trigger you. With the news barking at you about how the world is melting down before our eyes and every other commercial warning you of what horrific side effects come with the pills that they're slinging on TV, it's hard to tap into your inner knowing. It's hard to practice mindfulness when disempowering lyrics are blasting through the speakers. It's hardly an environment for self-care. Why do you think yoga studios, spas, and retreat centers feel so peaceful and inviting, while most gyms feel cold, sterile, and unwelcoming? Here's the thing though, it doesn't have to be a big adventure to be impactful. You could start with something simple. Suggest a walking meeting next time someone wants to schedule time with you. If you work a desk job, get outside and get some fresh air and find a bench or table to eat your lunch at, away from your screens and away from your desk. Take time to enjoy your food. Don't just shovel it in your face like I used to, mindlessly eating fistfuls of snacks while on conference calls because you don't have time to nourish yourself properly. And if you want to go out on a grand adventure, please, by all means, do. But know that it can be as simple as walking around your neighborhood and building from there. Hiking isn't the only activity that can help us find healing in the outdoors either. In San Diego, I don't like hiking in temperatures higher than 80 degrees, so when it's hot, we paddle, and when it's cooler, we hike. You have full permission to try whatever you want, whenever you want, and if you don't like it, that's okay too. You can hike your feelings, run your feelings, paddle your feelings, climb your feelings, bike your feelings, kayak your feelings, backpack your feelings. The list goes on and on. The common thread between all of these activities is they happen outside and they require your full attention. Most of them take you to places where you can disconnect from technology and reconnect with yourself. It's pretty difficult to get stuck in the loop of the mindless scroll through social media when you're solving problems on a rock wall. You're not stuck in front of the TV absorbing negative messaging and advertising when you're in the backcountry on a hike. Number 3, whenever you can, choose love over fear. Before I get into this, I want to make this clear. We hear these phrases often, especially in spaces and communities that are intended to promote wellness and healing. The choice is yours. Happiness is a choice, so just choose happiness. Everything is a choice. All of that is true, but the reason it feels so disingenuous, the reason it feels so floaty and lofty and unattainable, is there's never really any substance behind that, at least not from the folks who sell this message in the form of empowerment. There's no acknowledgement that we aren't all born on the same foundation from which to make choices. We don't hold space for different family dynamics, financial situations, community support or lack thereof, and we lack understanding of other folks' lived experiences. That's why talking about this is so damn important. If we keep our stories to ourselves, we rob humanity of the opportunity to understand one another. Owning what we've been through, at least with ourselves, is the first step to feeling comfortable talking about it. And the second we let someone else in, as soon as we pass some of our heavy load to someone who is willing to help us carry it, we get one step closer to freedom. When I didn't judge myself in that dressing room in 2016, at the heaviest I'd ever been, I chose love for myself over the fear of being fat, a fear which my mother had instilled in me at a very young age. This was the first domino in my healing journey. After the first hike, my friend Hannah gave me a copy of Shrill by Lindy West. Hannah was and is still one of my role models. She's a brilliant woman, smart, kind, no bullshit, and she's a world champion skydiver turned Hollywood stuntwoman. She's a legend and was one of the first skydiving coaches I met when I moved to Southern California. When I was training as a competitive skydiver, she was the coach who saw me, who understood me, and who could clearly communicate concepts that I had previously been struggling with. She impacted how I saw myself as a skydiver and how I felt about my body, which my previous coach had told me needed to be under 130 pounds if I ever had a dream of competing at an elite level. My weight felt like a barrier to my success as an athlete. After I found out about his felony convictions, Hannah was the one who scraped me off the proverbial sidewalk and helped me navigate all the toxic things this man had groomed me to believe. Hannah pointed out all of the women skydivers who had succeeded at a world competition, and a lot of them didn't meet this narrow body standard my coach had given me. As I told her about the things he had said to me over the years, she stopped me dead in my tracks every time and said, "This is not okay. Here's why." I felt like a child who had zero understanding of what kinds of communication were appropriate and which ones weren't. I was learning all over again, or more accurately, for the first time. I fancied myself a feminist before I started skydiving, but that chapter of my life had opened up so many learning opportunities and offered so much real-world experience to come to an understanding of what equality and equity is. I aspired to have a body like Hannah's, not only because that body met the standards my coach said I needed to meet, but also because she carried herself so confidently and went on so many cool adventures. Perhaps most impactful, it appeared to me as if her body didn't get in her way. It didn't hold her back from doing the things the way mine did. So as I read through Shrill, noting Hannah had underlined some surprising passages, I was bewildered. I didn't realize someone who looked like her could also have body image issues. My hatred for my body was visible in how I carried myself and joked about it, my defense mechanism of choice. To see that this woman also had some hangups about her own body really opened up my eyes. There was a part of Shrill where Lindy West describes coming out as fat. She explained if she owned it, the word wouldn't have such a powerful effect over her when she heard it. The single passage in the book was a massive shift in understanding for me. I'd always been afraid of being fat, and that word carried so much power for me. Before the first hike, I diversified who I followed on Instagram and started to see different bodies, ones that weren't only thin white women. As I saw women of all shapes and sizes and colors posting their favorite pictures of themselves, feeling themselves, rocking the world in ways they only knew how, I widened my own definition of beauty. When I saw how many different ways one could be beautiful, and I saw that some of the bodies looked more like mine, I stopped hating my body so much. Stopping the hate was not the same as loving, but it was a great start. The first hike taught me I love my body, but I want to be clear, that didn't solve all the problems, reverse years of habits of hating myself, or seal the deal on self-love. In fact, the love I had for my body wasn't its appearance, but what it could do. This body I didn't recognize back in that dressing room wasn't one that I felt at home yet, but I didn't hate it. After that first hike, I gave myself a coming out party. I was fat. What did I want to do about that? Well, diabetes came along and then I had my answer. It was time to take control of my health. I was stoked that I was comfortable in my body and that I'd started to love the skin I was in. It made the transition into managing a chronic illness much easier than if I were still in the throes of self-hatred. After the second hike, I truly did find love for my body because I finally had context for why it betrayed me after the assault, holding on to the weight no matter what I fed it or how I moved it. My body hadn't betrayed me after all. It was sending up warning signs, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, and finally the last siren, a diabetes diagnosis. This was my body calling out to my brain, "Hey, down here, pay attention to me." Luckily, I was able to hear the call, and I was equipped to answer the phone. It felt like I was missing something on the body acceptance piece, and that book helped me connect the final dots. When we talk about self-love, body positivity, and all that, the conversation is incomplete. Yes, we should aim to squash the narrow beauty standards we've been living in for the sake of our mental, physical, and emotional health. Yes, we should love the skin we're in and be comfortable expressing ourselves and taking up space in this world. And also, once we get away from this deeply rooted hatred for our bodies and move into acceptance, the journey doesn't stop there. My issues with my body were always centered around acceptance from other folks. But if I take that a step further, if I dig for the root of that belief, what did I really want? I wanted access. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to feel beautiful. I wanted to feel like I was welcome at the cool kids table. I wanted to feel like I belonged to something. With these blinders on, this deeply held belief that I wasn't worthy until I was thin, I felt like the only thing in my way of having everything I wanted was this body. I felt like my body betrayed me. More than that, I felt like I didn't have control of my body. And in a state of trauma, all I wanted was control. I was living in a body that, no matter what I fed or how I moved it, wouldn't release the weight of my trauma. That was my story until I faced the trauma head on. When I chose to aggressively manage my type 2 diabetes with diet and exercise, quitting 2 jobs in the process, I chose love for myself over the fear of the stigma of having that disease, or the fear of the prognosis if I left it untreated. I'm happy to say that in choosing love for myself in this particular instance, I was able to reverse my type 2 diabetes. That sounds like a nice little soundbite, an incredible achievement, and it is, full stop. But I would be remiss if we didn't discuss how political this disease is, and how we set up people for failure in their attempts to manage it. My type 2 diabetes is in remission, made possible because I chose me. This disease won't manage itself. I can't cut it out of me. I have to choose myself and my health every day. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's exhausting. Ultimately, this disease is a result of my choices, past, present, and future. It's taken me a long time for me to be okay with that, especially the past part. I'm the one who puts food in my mouth. I'm the one who decides if and how I move my body. I'm the one who manages my stress. Nobody else can do these things for me. This disease is the ultimate test of my ability to understand, articulate, and prioritize my needs. This disease is political no matter how you slice it. 49% of US adults are pre-diabetic or living with type 2 diabetes. This is an epidemic. It's a crisis. And it's 100% preventable, but not with some incredibly hard work. While it's true that my health is my responsibility, it's also true that there are a variety of systems and societal norms that make it difficult. Not everyone has access to fresh, whole foods. Not everyone has access to medical care. Not everyone has access to emotional support. Not everyone has access to outdoor spaces where healing is possible. Not everyone has time to prioritize their health because we've all been sold a craptastic bill of goods. We're told that on the other side of hard work is happiness, so we kill ourselves doing work that doesn't accommodate for living life right now. We're told that on the other side of get a hot body is worthiness, so we kill ourselves trying to get smaller to meet some standards set by those who want our money more than they want our wellness. And we're told that the most important thing on this planet is to make money, lots of it. We are all hoarders. Some of us have a house full of material things we can't let go of. Some of us hoard trauma and pass it down generation after generation without doing the work. Some of us hoard green paper. We accumulate and consume and acquire and exploit each other, the land, and ourselves. For what? A house? Nice clothes? A fancy car? What about our health? What about our community? When I was first diagnosed, I felt so much shame. Once I learned that my choices were what got me here, I felt sick to my stomach. I had brought this upon myself, and it was up to me to fix it. The shame is designed to keep us down. The shame is an intentional weapon deployed by society to keep folks sick, paying big money for drugs, and stockpiling prescriptions to prevent the other side effects. It's bullshit, and it has to stop. Let's talk about how many things are stacked against us in this society and use my privilege as an example of how political this disease truly is. When I was diagnosed, I was making $118,000 per year, working in corporate America as a marketing director at a prestigious marketing and communications agency. I had the best benefits package available to me through my employer. I lived in San Diego, and I worked from home. I didn't have let's go buy a boat money, but we weren't struggling. Anything and everything I needed, within reason, I could purchase. I worked from home so I could, within reason, set my own schedule around what meetings I had on the calendar and how heavy my workload was. I was able to wake up early and go for a walk every morning around my neighborhood and paddleboard in the afternoon. I was fortunate that my boss was a compassionate individual who understood that I'd need to be in and out of work to manage this disease effectively. Since I was salaried, I didn't miss a paycheck for taking time off to manage my health. We lived in a major metropolitan area that made eating healthy as easy as humanly possible. There was a huge selection of vegetarian, gluten-free, and vegan options at the restaurants in this town. Between farmers markets, regular grocery stores, and specialty organic markets, I had seemingly unlimited access to healthy food. I was blessed with a family that prioritized cooking at home, and I took a liking to cooking at a very young age, so I knew how to nourish myself and prepare it at home. My benefits package was top-notch, and there were not a lot of out-of-pocket expenses for my diagnosis. My frequent labs and doctor visits were all covered with minimal copay, but even if there were expenses, I was making money, and I could have afforded it. And when I knew I couldn't do this job any longer and I quit my first job, I was fortunate that I had another job to go to, even if I was taking a considerable pay cut to work there. When I left the startup, I didn't have much savings to speak of, and I didn't have another job lined up. But I did have credit cards with lots of available credit, enough to float us for at least 6 months if I only made minimum payments, before we had to start making money again. Was that the wisest financial plan? Of course not. But when faced with 95 days of panic attacks, rising blood sugar, and feeling like I was at the risk of reversing the progress I had made on managing the disease thus far, it was a no-brainer. I'm smart. I'm educated. I'm well-connected. I could always find a job that would help me pay down the debt quickly. If any of those things weren't true for me, this would have been a very different situation. If I had to work 3 jobs and didn't have time for exercise, or if I lived in a food desert and didn't have access to whole, fresh foods, if I didn't have health insurance, if my boss was an asshole and saw my absences as a nuisance, rather than encouraging me to do whatever I needed to do to manage my health, I don't know how far along I'd be in working to reverse this disease. My privilege is only part of the equation. Let's talk about what else is stacked against us here. We live in a society that prioritizes work above all else, and this is by design. The American dream is actually a fantasy designed by a variety of corporations to keep you striving for things that don't really bring any value to your life. It's not a coincidence that the dream sold to us is measured in material goods: fast car, big house, all the toys for grown-ups and children alike. We work ourselves to death, either in pursuit of this dream if we have the means to access the things we've been conditioned to believe we want: cars, houses, boats, planes, designer handbags, etc., or because we're working multiple jobs to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. Where is the American dream that shows us living in community with one another, spending time outdoors, caring for our planet, nourishing ourselves with whole foods, having clean water to drink, prioritizing our mental, physical, and spiritual health? Where is the commercial about that? Where are the magazine ads about that? A self-sufficient population is difficult to control, manipulate, and sell to, so the cycle continues, and those who dare to see the world differently are cast out, and the ones who can't make ends meet are in a perpetual loop of struggle and trying to catch up. We are so far removed from what we actually need to survive in this world because we are in this constant pursuit of acquiring more stuff, more money, more land. This has been happening since the Europeans came to America and started to colonize this country. They boasted of bringing medicine and industry to the Native Americans, but what they really brought was disease, dysfunction, and trauma to the folks who didn't look, love, live, or work like them. We live in a society where it is so easy to eat poorly. Food completely devoid of nutritional value is easy, accessible, and cheap, and it's designed to be addictive. In 2013, the New York Times writer Michael Moss interviewed Stephen A. Witherly, a food scientist and the author of Why Humans Like Junk Food. In the article, Witherly explained that nacho cheese Doritos are the archetype of addictive processed foods. They've been engineered so you never feel like you have enough. Here's why. The chips have powerful savory flavor known as umami, and as well as what Witherly calls long hang time flavors, like garlic, that create a lingering smell that stimulates memories. According to Witherly, the recipe balances these powerful tastes so well that no single flavor overpowers and lingers in the mind after you've eaten a chip. This avoids what scientists call sensory-specific satiety, or the feeling of fullness caused by a dominant flavor. The food is engineered to keep us coming back for more. Look at the price of a bag of chips versus an avocado, and it's not hard to see why we make the choices we do. We live in a society that expects women to care for themselves, to care for everyone around them before they care for themselves, while also preaching independence. This society also defines beauty as thin, white, heterosexual, cisgender, and able-bodied. Anything that falls outside of that very narrow standard is tossed aside. Think about it. Think about how hard we work as women to take up less space, to be as small as possible, to choose everything and everyone before we choose ourselves. We're told that being selfish is the ultimate sin because nobody likes someone who likes themselves that much. We interpret confidence as arrogance, and the effects of doing so are staggering. I was told at a very young age that I'm too much, and that this was confirmed later in my career, over and over and over. While everyone told me I was too much, I never felt like enough. I didn't measure up to this standard of beauty. The cognitive dissonance was deafening. For me to be fully expressed, for me to prioritize myself, for me to advocate for my best interests, in my health, in love, and in my career, didn't feel safe. We live in a society that paints what it means to be a man with a toxic brush. Be strong, be a provider, don't show your emotions, make sure you're head of the household. These expectations manifest in all kinds of ways: violence, projected insecurities when you don't meet the narrowed standards of what it means to be a successful man in this society, entitlement to women's bodies, as evidenced by the statistics surrounding sexual assault, domestic violence, and homicide rates. We talk about these choices we've made that got us to this place, but we don't hold space for the fact that we aren't all equipped or able to make healthy choices. So if you're struggling with anything and someone tells you you should have chosen better, don't let it stop there. Don't succumb to the words and the shame that surrounds them. Know that there are a lot of factors outside of your control, and then do what you can to regain control in the areas you can. Only you know what you're truly up against. Only you know what you can change. But here's a spoiler alert. There's nobody coming in to swoop you up and save you. You have to do this for yourself, by yourself, and be willing to accept help from the people who care about you. Finally, whenever I share my story on tour, as well as with the writing of this book, I'm choosing love for myself over the fear of what happens when a woman stands up and speaks her truth. Let's face it, talking about these kinds of topics is still taboo in most of our society. What happens when women stand up and speak their truth? They're chastised, bullied, shamed, and some are even driven to suicide. What can we do to swing the pendulum in the other direction? First of all, let's assume the survivor is telling the truth. Instead of putting the burden of proof on the survivor, the person who has survived the most violent act that can be perpetrated against the human body, short of murder, let us, if only for a moment, assume that they have survived what they say they have survived. That is an incredible feat in and of itself. Rape is an epidemic in this country. Someone is sexually assaulted every 73 seconds. Survivors of sexual assault are 10 times more likely to attempt suicide than those who haven't experienced sexual assault. Second, let's cast aside any immediate reaction to assume the survivors are speaking up to ruin the lives of people who committed the crime. To live through the assault itself, to survive the aftermath, and to arrive at a place where you feel comfortable talking about it in a society that slut shames victims as a default is a heroic moment. I was a student on track to go to med school, become a surgeon, and save lives. While I certainly wouldn't call the life I've created from the ashes a waste of my time or talent, I know I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I've been able to take what was the most debilitating moment of my life and turn it around into a powerful force for change. Not everyone is equipped to do so. And when I think about that, I think of all the lost potential out there. How many survivors are still being crushed by the weight of this trauma? How many survivors weren't able to complete their education, or even worse, never had a shot at getting an education to begin with? How many are struggling today, underemployed, unable to hold a job, unable to see a healthy way out of the pain? How many are still numbing themselves? The thought of how many dreams have gone unrealized is paralyzing. What if I hadn't ever found the words to describe what happened to me? What if I didn't ever expand my definition of sexual assault to include a description of my rape? For more than 11 years, I assumed what happened to me was my fault, that I asked for it, all because I wasn't in a dark alley with a stranger putting a gun to my head as it was happening. The only folks who benefit from our silence are the ones who perpetrated these crimes against our bodies. Literally nobody else benefits. First of all, we don't benefit from staying quiet. When we carry this by ourselves, our bodies work in mysterious ways to keep us safe and numb. Mine offered up eating and drinking my feelings as my coping mechanisms of choice when I didn't get help. Our partners don't benefit from our silence. After surviving any kind of trauma, particularly sexual assault, it can be difficult to see a path to healthy love. For years after my assault, I made questionable relationship choices, all in the name of feeling in control. If I was choosing them, then I was empowered, and in some cases, that couldn't have been further from the truth. When I found out that my boyfriend was married, I stuck around. I didn't value myself enough to see that I was worthy of more, but I felt empowered to make the choice to stay, to stick it out because I was enamored with what we could have been. When I marched into a bar in Chicago wearing sweatpants, a hoodie, and some knockoff Ugg boots and pointed to the man I was going to take home that night, I didn't value myself enough to see that I was desperate for human touch, but I felt empowered because I made the choice of who touched me. Society, our communities, the world around us doesn't benefit from our silence. I didn't tell anyone after my assault, and trying to carry that load alone distracted me from my studies. Looking back, I wouldn't change anything that happened to me, not even that morning, because I love where I am right now. But I do think about how many lives I could have saved as a surgeon. Maybe I would have found a cure for cancer. Maybe I would have invented some revolutionary procedure or technique that could have changed the way we approach medicine. I'm lucky that my pivot in my studies took me where it did, and that I'm able to share the story with you now. I'm lucky that my aftermath was largely academic and not a gateway to more trauma, because trauma is the gateway drug. Read that again. Every night that I had too much to drink and insisted on driving home intoxicated, I didn't value myself enough to dig to the root of that. I didn't want to see that the last time I didn't drive home drunk, when I followed my friend's pleas to stay at her house, I was raped. In the aftermath of my assault, driving home in various states of intoxication felt like I had chosen my safety, even if I was in no condition to drive. If something happened to me, at least it would be my choices that got me here, not at the hands of someone taking advantage of me. I'm fortunate that my numbing stopped at alcohol and ice cream, and that I didn't extend harder substances like opiates, heroin, cocaine, or methamphetamines. Our families don't benefit from our silence. I grew up in a tight-knit Midwestern household. We told each other everything, but I couldn't tell them this. After I got done with the second hike and I shared the discoveries I had made on trail with my family, I felt a negative shift in our family dynamic. My father, who I grew up with as my best friend, seemed to change within seconds. This is heavy stuff and I expected a reaction, but this was not the reaction I expected. After I finished sharing about what had happened, he cut me off, going on to say that my story was bullshit and that I better come up with a new one because nobody is buying the story I'm telling. I quickly got acquainted with establishing boundaries because growing up, I had none. Through the shared stories and a handful of aha moments, it became abundantly clear to me, this is generational trauma. Trauma can be generational, and it gets passed down again and again through our silence. Our bodies retain it, store it, and know it. And it's not until someone decides to disrupt the pattern, to take their trauma into their own hands, examine it, work through it, and do the hard work to heal, that the cycle stops. If trauma can be passed down generation to generation, so can healing. Would I have been raped if our family spoke more openly about sexual violence? Maybe, maybe not. But I know that by sharing my experiences, I'm able to give folks language that may help them articulate what happened to them, which is the first step of the healing process. So if you're reading this and you've survived some hard things, hi, welcome to the next chapter of your life. If you found some of your story within these pages, know that it's because we are way more alike than we are different. I'm sorry if my words have caused you pain, but the fact that you're able to feel is one of the most beautiful parts of the human experience. There's no shame in crying, screaming, and curling up in the fetal position. I won't take it personally if my story stirs up feelings in you that are terrifying and make you want to burn this book. I will say this: I believe you, I see you, I love you, I hear you, we got this. Also, trauma isn't a competition. If you're reading this and comparing your story to mine, thinking you've survived more or less, please stop yourself. What's true for you is true for you, full stop. You get to define your trauma. You get to claim the parts of your story you've been scared to claim. You get to decide how you show up, how you heal, and how you move forward in this world. I don't get to do that for you. Your family doesn't get to do that for you. Neither do your friends, colleagues, medical professionals, coaches, or teachers. Only you can decide what you're ready to reclaim. Only you can decide what that looks like. And if there's a chance you're like me, I need you to hear this loud and clear. If you've been reading this, nodding a lot, and you feel like my story is your story, it's because it is. We are all one. We are all part of a collective consciousness. Unity is power. Our lived experiences are ours and unique to us, but the major through lines of our stories are shared. Whether you believe in God, the universe, unicorns, the flying spaghetti monster, or anything in between, at the end of the day, we are all mirrors for each other. If you're inspired and want to aspire to find this kind of healing, to know yourself this well, all you have to do now is recognize that you are worthy of embodying those qualities. You recognize those qualities in me and the other people you look up to, and because you already hold these within yourself. You can do this. Together, we can do this. And know this much, I've got your back. Boom, shakalaka, it's done. Yay! So that is the chapter, the end, the book is over, it's all done. And now I'm really excited to chat with Judith Sadora, Judith Sidora from Evoke Therapy. Hello, my love, come on down.
Hello.
Hello.
Man. Sydney, man. That was powerful.
Thank you.
I'm listening and I'm like, yep. Like, you don't even know. Like the word. That was beautiful. That was amazing. That was so vulnerable. And I just want to say thank you for inviting us into your space, into your story like that. It is very vulnerable to share something so deep that way. And for you to be able to open yourself up to the community around you and to us strangers, it makes you feel like we're not so much strangers after all, right? So just thank you.
Thank you for all of that. Received. I'm just going to let that soak in for a second.
So let it soak in.
For the folks that don't know you, who are you? What do you do? And where do you currently live?
Yes. I am Judith Sadora. I am actually a licensed and marriage family therapist, but I work in wilderness therapy. I work for a program here in Central Oregon that's based out of Bend. I live a little bit outside of Bend in Redmond, more countryside, but yeah. So I'm from Central Oregon. Well, not from, but living in Central Oregon.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about wilderness therapy. What does that entail and how is that different from like sitting on a couch with a therapist inside?
Oh my gosh, how is that different? For me, it's not as, I don't want to say, sitting in a room doing therapy is boring. Not trying to say that at all, but it definitely stimulates my mind. It stimulates the work that I do, and it stimulates the mind of the clients that I work with. So yeah, wilderness therapy, we typically call that experiential therapy. It's just being able to work with individuals. I specifically work with clients, with adolescent clients, so teenagers, anywhere from as young as 13 to about, and I work with young adults too. So it can be 19, 20. And it's just a great way to work with adolescents and young adults in that. That's just not necessarily just talk therapy. Talk therapy works. It has its advantages, of course, and it works, and it's just it is effective. But when you're working with adolescents, I just love doing things more with my hands, and doing therapy and talking about trauma, hitting the trauma points through a different way, that is probably more, I would say it's I don't know, it just makes it easier to do that. And the kids don't always know that that's what we're doing. They don't feel like it's therapy. How is this therapy? This is different from just sitting down and talking. I'm like, I know. So yeah, it's just an experiential way to do therapy. We utilize backpacking, hiking. We also do primitive, just hard skills like busting fire, how they create their fires through busting fire, using natural wilderness materials that they harvest up, and then they create a bow and drill. They have a spindle, they have a fireboard, and they're just busting away. And it is hard. It is a hard thing to do. And it can be very frustrating. For a lot of kids, they can avoid it. They can be so obsessed with it. Yeah, so we just use that mythology, and also to, they cook meals together. They create meals for the whole group individually. They carve out spoons, and I mean, they make so many different things like leather bags and rings and necklaces. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable to see the hard skills that these kids have. But it's just a really great way to be able to meet kids exactly where they're at without pushing it on them, right? Without bombarding their walls or their defense mechanisms and things like that. So I love it. I love doing what I do.
It sounds absolutely incredible and makes me wish that I knew that A, that existed, and B, where to find somebody like that. So
Right.
is there like a association of wilderness therapists? Like if somebody's watching and they're like, that sounds like the kind of therapy I'm into, where is a good place to start looking, and how do you find these kinds of therapists?
Oh my gosh, good question. I didn't know. I did my master's degree in Vegas, in marriage and family therapy, and did not even know this exists. Wilderness therapy exists. I had a colleague of mine who was working for a wilderness therapy program in Utah, and he contacted me and was like, hey, I know you love nature, you love the outdoors, and also you're a therapist. Did you ever hear about this? And of course I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I can, put my two loves together. And so I did a lot of research, and I found an entire field. It's actually all underneath outdoor behavioral healthcare. And so there's just a bunch of wilderness therapy programs. Utah, Central Oregon, we have in Wisconsin, we have North Carolina. Asheville, North Carolina is also a hub of wilderness therapy programs. And Colorado also has quite a few. But yeah, it's a plethora of wilderness therapy programs. If you Google it, you will see them pop up and show up.
That is amazing. And
Yeah.
I love the idea of spending time outside. And what I've found in just like the group hikes that we lead, and I'm not a therapist, nor do I claim to be one, but I've found that people just naturally open up. Just we're walking, we're not staring at each other. And it wasn't until I did a book reading before COVID happened, and a woman and her daughter came up afterwards, and she was like, you know what? Me and my daughter go out for hikes all the time now because we don't have to look at each other. Is that something that you found is like helpful? Because they like the eye contact, it can be intimidating to get people to open up and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of trust that you have to have if you're sitting with somebody face to face. So is that one of the like known things about therapy in the wilderness that makes it easier for folks to access these things?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of fear, I think, when you're going to see a therapist. There's a stigma to mental health quite a bit. If you're seeing a therapist, it's kind of like something's wrong with you. You touched on it a little bit in your chapter, in your book, of like, there's something wrong with me if I have trauma, or if I'm going through things, or if someone refers me to a therapist. And so being able to do something that's a little bit more experiential, more fun, it doesn't require like this awkwardness, right? Of like, okay, I'm sitting in the chair or I'm laying down on the couch and now I'm talking to like a shrink about my problems and why there's something wrong with me. You know, it's so different. And so I think that it alleviates some of the stress that can come, of the anxiety that can come with seeing a therapist. It alleviates just the stigma around it too. And I think with just the looking at each other, I mean, you know, during COVID, I mean, we're kind of all looking at each other all day long. So to not be able to do that, I think is super helpful. Let's look at something else. Let's look at the sunset. There's also such benefits to being in nature, you know, just being around it, the endorphins that it allows you to kind of take out and things like that. And so I think that there's something healing about sharing these natural big spaces with another individual as well too. It really alleviates the anxiety.
I dig that a lot. And I was wondering, is there, for anybody that's listening or watching, and I know that it of course depends on where everybody's at in their journey, and what kind of things they've been through, but is there like a good baseline kind of exercise that somebody could go do on a hike in the woods with themselves to just kind of like start tapping into these things? Like, do you have any self-soothing strategies that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, the kids that we have out there, they're practicing, although we do a lot of mindfulness, and MBS, mind, body, and soul, some meditation type things. The work that I do, I work with adolescent boys of color, and we talk a lot about, you know, race and racial identity. And a big part of that too is regulation. So self-regulating, self-soothing. And so the kids that I work with, they're coming to me with substance abuse. They're pretty much labeled as like they have acting out behaviors in terms of violence or anger, that looks physical, that looks aggressive, that looks explosive. Issues, they've had issues with the police or issues with their parents or authority figures, and really just they're really struggling. But the baseline layer of it is typically depression, anxiety. And some of the kids that I work with, well, a big chunk of the kids I work with tend to be adopted. So they're transracial adoptees. And a lot of times, due to just kind of their trauma prior to being adopted, there's a lot of issues with self-regulation, the nervous system. And so that's a big bulk of my work. It's just another added layer because they're kids of color of like, hey, like I'm really honest with them. We need to work on your regulation skills because sometimes it can be a matter of life and death as a person of color, especially if you live in white neighborhoods because you're adopted from affluent white parents. And so I'm really working a lot on that. And that's breathing exercises. That's, you know, what you hear, what you see. A lot of it is from an attachment standpoint in regards to utilizing the staff that we have out there. We have staff that's out there 8 days on, 6 days off. So they're out there for quite a bit. Or 8 days off or 8 days on. I can't remember, but they're out there for quite a bit. But I like to call them co-regulators. So when a kid is flying off the handle and is experiencing high intense anxiety, or they're being triggered in regards to some of their trauma issues, staff's ability to be a co-regulator, meaning that they are able to mirror what it means to self-soothe and regulate through meditation, through the way that you're talking, even through hiking, or even able to take space. We take space, meaning that if you need to go and you have a perimeter of just around the trees where that is just your safe haven, that's your spot where you can just go there and like meditate and self-soothe and just learn how to regulate yourself, then that's what you need to do. And staff is able to mirror that and to teach our clients these very things. And so I think we do it all the time as we go hiking. We're paying attention to the trees. We're paying attention to the birds, the sky, the mountains. We're paying attention to every step. If it's a really long and hard trek, my kids are carrying some heavy backpacks when they're backpacking 10 miles or plus a day or whatever many days. They have to pay attention to every step that they're making. They have to pay attention to their safety as well too. And are they with the whole group, because it's a collaborative thing and a collaborative project and process. And so I think, yeah, those are the ways that we kind of utilize it out there. It's just finding the best ways to regulate your nervous system. When you're feeling anxiety, when you're feeling a sense of feelings that's just that's deregulated in some way, What are you doing to self-soothe? And so that can be, again, breathing exercises or mindfulness, paying attention to the surroundings around you. I think so often what I love about nature and what I love about wilderness therapy is that so often we can just be so bombarded with social media and what's going on around us, even relationships. We can be distracted by the relationships around us, that it's hard to even learn how to identify what your body is even saying to you, right? If there's something that's wrong. You talked about that in terms of diabetes, like your body was saying, hello.
Hey, lady.
Exactly. And so we oftentimes have a hard time identifying that. So when you're out in nature, we're working in wilderness therapy, it also pushes me to kind of check in with myself when I'm out there. Right before I'm going into a session with a client, or we're going for a hike, or we're about to open up a group, it really challenges me to check in with myself first. And I think that's the biggest thing, is how are you checking in with yourself and your body and your mind, and your spirit, even when you're out there, when you're hiking and such, and how do you take that and utilize it in the front country when you are around the chaos and the distractions. I think oftentimes we can be so good at being disconnected and practicing regulation tools and skills when we're out in nature. But if you haven't bridged that of how to carry that in the front country, then we're missing something as human beings. We're supposed to carry that into the front country in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's a long answer.
I love it. No, that was super good. So what are some ways to help bridge between backcountry and front country?
Good question. I did a podcast, which she explores, and they asked me the same question, right? Gail did. And she just kind of was like, so how do you bridge that? Even during COVID, like we can't get out. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same for everybody. Everybody is different. So a lot of the things I say, just be mindful of that. But all I can say is from my experience, I try to find ways in the front country to still feel connected to nature. And so I garden. I love gardening. I love putting my hands in the dirt, in the soil. It's a form of mindfulness for me. I check out. For my job, I'm out in the field 2 days, and then I come back in and I'm on the phone and on my computer for 2 days straight, because I'm doing phone calls with parents, parent coaching, therapy on phone. I'm doing paperwork, clinical work, and that can drain me. Just those 2 days can really drain me. And so every time I'm done, I go right into my garden for the end of the day, and I spend 2 hours in my garden or outside. My husband and I are building a chicken coop. So we just do projects outside. We're like, we need to be outside as much as possible. I got plants around my house because, again, it connects me to nature in some way. I'm fortunate enough, and I know I'm privileged enough to live where I live, and most people don't have access to a 1 acre or the ability to build and create a big old garden. But I think being able to work within your means, if you have a small backyard or you're in a city rural area or a city area, getting like a little, I told one of my friends to get like a pot and just 1 pot, put it on your porch or even on your windowsill and plant some tomatoes. And so she did. And she's like, my tomatoes are thriving. And that's a connection to nature in some way. And this yoga or meditation practices, just anything that self-soothes and regulates. Paying attention. I think you mentioned this as well, paying attention to what you eat. I remember I had downloaded an app, a meditation app, and it had me spend the morning, a part of my morning, paying attention to chewing on the food that I was chewing. I was like, at first I was like, what in the world is this? Like, I can't do this. But I did it. And it's so crazy to me how, I don't know, it was a great experience to be able to eat and chew and be mindful of what I'm eating and how I chew, how fast I chew. Like, it was just amazing. But I think things like that, there's just a lot of different ways but you have to be creative, be super creative.
What are some of the mental health myths that you wish would just die, that are preventing people from getting help they need? The stigmas that are out there, like what are some of these things that if we could just squash it, what would you squash right now forever and ever?
Oh my gosh. Oh my word. That's a word. The myths. I think not understanding trauma. There's a lot of myths around trauma, that we don't have trauma. Yeah, like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that's the biggest one, is people not understanding trauma. And the idea that we're all alone, that you're experiencing is by yourself. Or even the idea that if you have mental health illness, I mean, it has to be this big illness. Like, it has to be schizophrenia. It has to be, major depression in a hospital. The spectrum of mental health illness can be worked on. I mean, there is a huge spectrum of it, and everybody is on the spectrum in some point, some shape or matter. And so I think the myth around what mental health illness is, and the significance of it, or the lack of it, is something that I would want to educate. I strive to educate, especially for the Black community, the people I work with. It's this idea of, we don't have mental health issues, or if we do, we don't talk about it. We're not supposed to talk about it. Don't tell people your business. That's another aspect of it that I wish that's a generational trauma that I had to cut out of my life as I did my own personal work. So there's that. The idea of generational trauma, you talked about that in your book. People don't realize that there are overt and covert messages within a family system that's passed down from generation to generation. And we don't realize the implications of it and the complexity of it, and how that actually impacts the family and impacts an individual's well-being, whether spiritually, mentally, emotionally. There's myths around that. But yeah, I think stigma around mental health in general, or the fact that you just get a pill and it's cured just like that.
Yeah, and you're better. It's so easy.
So easy, right?
It goes away. Yeah.
It just goes away. You're done. And if it doesn't go away, then there's something wrong with you, right?
There's more wrong with you, because you were already messed up because you had to take medicine. And then if it doesn't work, that's your fault too. You should probably get it together.
Get it together. Oh my gosh. Yes. So much. And then there's some myths even in the spiritual world. I'm a Christian. There's some myths in the Christian community around mental health that's just like absolutely drives me nuts and crazy. I'm not really understanding mental health, not really understanding science and the body and the functioning of it, what it's created for. So there's a lot of myths there that I'm always constantly challenging with some of my, within the community itself. But yeah, it's this idea that there's something wrong with you. And I think mental health is a journey. It's a process. It's a journey, and I think we're all on it. And it really depends on your awareness on the journey too. Like, are you aware of where you're at, where your family has been at? Are you aware of some of the trauma that's been passed down to you that you're operating in? And also that you're operating within your family, with your parents or your siblings, or even in partner relationships. I think there's just not a lot of awareness in it. And so, and there's shame there. The shame of, I have these problems and I think there's something wrong with me, and shame perpetuates the problem. And so if we don't acknowledge that, then that makes it difficult too. That makes it hard to grow and to heal. But yeah, healing is a process. I'm learning that every day, like each and every day that I work with clients and I'm in my own personal journey. So it's a good question.
Yeah, thank you. So one of our donors in the Zoom chat has asked, where could we get more info or tips on how we can help our kids the way you help the kids you work with? Like, are there some basic tips and tricks that parents can do as a first measure before they find a therapist?
Yeah, I think Psychology Today, well, that's for therapists, but if you look online, I mean, there's just so much. The internet has a plethora of information. I always say Google it. The moment that you Google it, there is information that comes up, to be honest with you. And you also have to be very careful of the resources that you do get, making sure that it's peer reviewed or it's actually accurate. It's based off of research. I think anytime that you Google stuff in regards to attachment, to trauma, that is the most important. If you're seeking a therapist, seek a therapist. This is my bias, but I think it's important to seek a therapist that is trauma informed, that's attachment informed. If you don't, then you're missing a big bulk of the work. There's podcasts there. There's a podcast that Evoke Therapy. I mean, it's an awesome, I know it's kind of biased, but it is an awesome podcast in regards to just the information there. It is parenting everything. And it provides a lot of information in regards to parents doing their own work. This is one thing I would stress the most, is that if you are a parent and you're not doing your own mental health work, then that's a red flag. That's a red flag. I believe that we parent from our own lived experience, and we also parent from our own trauma. And that's a big bulk of the work that I do with the parents that I coach, is let's identify some of your own trauma and your unresolved wounds. Parents have wounds too. And a lot of times that's passed down to other generations, to kids as well too. So I think being able to do your own work, finding a therapist that's trauma informed. When you're looking up resources online, look up resources that are a little bit more peer reviewed, and you can find them. They're pretty easy. There is podcasts there. I mean, there's so much resources, honestly.
Great. And for folks that might not be aware, who are in therapy, who might not know if their therapist is trauma informed, what does that mean? And how do you go about becoming a trauma informed therapist?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think I can't speak for different therapists, right? What I will say is across the board with therapists is that we as therapists are so open and are required to be open to feedback from our clients, which means that checking in with our clients to see, is this working for you? Is there anything that we're missing? Is the approach that we're working on, does it fit you? And if it fits you, then you're great, then that's fine. If it doesn't, being able to communicate that to your therapist, and your therapist should be equipped and educated enough to know how to move forward with you from that place as you share some of this stuff. I've had some of my friends share with me the idea of, you know, we don't talk about my family trauma or some of my family stuff, and I wish we could. And I encourage them, talk about that with your therapist. And when they do, the therapist is like, oh, okay, great. Let's dive a little bit. Why is that important for you? Let's dive a little bit more into that. So that's one thing that I would say for sure, is that us as therapists should be open to feedback from our clients. And if you have a therapist that's not open to feedback from their clients, that's a problem, first and foremost. And second of all, I would say, being a trauma informed, I mean, I think it's training. I've done training. I've had supervisors that are trauma informed. And I seek out the training. I want to learn. I want to have more of an understanding. Doesn't mean I know everything, but for the most part, I do want to have some type of understanding or awareness of trauma and how it plays into the work that I do with my kids and the families that I'm working with and for. And so there's a lot of education out there in terms of attachment, in terms of trauma forms. You have something it's very popular. You have EMDR, you have brain spotting that's out there. I do another form of trauma work. It's more creative. It's Psychodrama. I do it out in the field and I love it. I take scarves, like different types of colored scarves, like colorful scarves. I take it out there and I have my kids, one of my clients, they do psychodramas. And it's just, if you think of trauma, it's really a lot of times like when we're being triggered or we're having a trauma response to something, we pretty much say that someone's brain is being flooded, right? Your amygdala that carries a lot of emotions and feelings is flooded with that emotion. And so it's almost like your brain is on fire. You flipped your leg, right? Your prefrontal lobe, your cortex, the thinking brain is not able to process. Your feeling brain is pretty much on fire. And so with the psychodrama, what we do is we actually have kids flip their lids, but it's in a container, right? It's in a contained, safe spot where it's like, we want to see what happens when you're acting out, when you're trying to cope with these negative maladaptive behaviors. We want to see what's going on with your brain at that moment. How are you, what's happening at that moment? And so using a psychodrama, it means really picking out people in a group therapy, like an in-group therapy, picking out other clients to play different roles. Let's say you're playing your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever it is. And you're talking to that individual and you're role playing and doing these role reversals and talking to them about the things that have really hurt you, that have been harmful. I mean, it's really, really intense work. But that's trauma-based work that I use out in the field. And they kind of, each person wears a different color scarf to represent the person that they're playing as well too. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what psychodrama is. But yeah, there's different trauma-informed practices and trainings that are out there that therapists can easily get that. Also just understanding how the body holds trauma. A really great resource and a great book is The Body Keeps the Score. But I don't know if you've read that, but that is a really, really good book to read in regards to how your body holds and stores trauma in a lot of ways.
I dig it. Andy wants to know, how can we help to bridge the nature gap that access to nature is yet another realm of social inequity, societal inequity?
Oh, ain't that the question? Yeah. I think one thing I will say, well, one, there is a plethora of social justice people in environmental studies and that are really pushing for representation and also for inequities, right? For equal access to the outdoors for people of color or for LGBTQ communities or anything like that, marginalized or oppressed type of people. So there are a lot of initiatives and a push for that of representations, even on social media, on Instagram alone. It's phenomenal to see the community that's out there. So I think, so that's one thing. Another thing too, I've always talked about is defining what nature means. I think a lot of times we have an understanding or not understanding, but we kind of put out there that nature means long backpacking treks with a big backpack with all the gear for 2 weeks, where really not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody has access to do that. And I think that we sort of lumped or put nature in this box of what it looks like. Nature can look like going outside on the basketball court. Nature can look like a long walk around on the park. Nature can look like picnicking at a park, taking a bike ride on a biking trail around your town or your city. Nature can look like, again, doing a garden behind, in your backyard. So I think that's one thing that I've been challenged a lot in, of like, why do we define nature to only look like this, like the perfect REI
ad
magazine?
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? It doesn't have to look like that. I think we have to break and deconstruct the narrative around that in a lot of ways. And I think that is a big part of breaking that nature gap, because more individual would realize. Oftentimes I have kids who come to me and they're from the city, New York, California, and they are petrified being out in nature, backpacking for 2-3 months. I mean, it's intense. Like, it's on a other level of wilderness, right? And they're like, oh my gosh. But some of the conversations I have with them is like, do you realize that what you do at home can be a part of nature? Like, that's how I'm trying to bridge the gap to allow them to continue doing that when they get home, is identifying what ways can they be connected to nature at home when they're back in the city or back in their environments or areas. And I think the more that we can do that, the more people can feel connected to their environment, to the environment around that, to the nature itself, and to, that kind of stuff. And I think that's gonna increase a lot more equities in regards to the environmental realm, in terms of other people who don't have access to it. They'll realize that they can have access to it in their backyard or in the places in their communities, even as a whole. But yeah, I think that's one way. At least that's what's challenging me.
Fantastic. Is there anything that's on your heart and mind that you want to share that we haven't discussed yet? As far as trauma, therapy, outside, what's going on in the world, anything else?
Yeah, I think it's a hard time right now. It's been even harder for me. I've had to make space for some of the stuff that's going on for me. And I actually attended a protest, a march that we had here last week in my town in Central Bend, and it was awesome. It was a great turnout, and just to be there with family and friends and also strangers that you feel so connected to was just amazing. But I also found myself, my husband and I, we found ourselves going, we needed to go for a hike right afterwards, because it was just so much. It was so heavy. just to be reconnected again and feel grounded. And I am so much more, I would consider myself not necessarily an activist, but an advocate of mental health and racial identity for the clients that I work with. That's probably what I would consider myself, an advocate for, you know, people of color out in nature and people of color in mental health, and parents as well too. And so I think the one thing that I always tell myself is I don't want to lose myself in the work. I want to stay connected to who I am as an individual and as a person. And that also incorporates being a woman of color, right? I know that, and I have that identity in some ways, but I have so much more into my identity. And so I think the biggest thing that I hope for people during this time is that we can always go back to what we're rooted in. And if you don't know, do the work to find out who you are. And that requires going through trauma and working through that and processing that. For Black, white, doesn't matter. And so I think that's the biggest thing that's sitting in my heart is I'm reminded, like, I don't want to lose myself in this work. I want to be connected to who I am to the core. And a part of doing that is making sure that I'm making space for my mental health. I'm making space for my mental health. And a lot of times that means making space for your mental health is scary as heck. I mean, it's scary because you find out more about yourself that you never wanted to find out. You can feel a lot of shame in regards to it, but nonetheless, I want to dive in. I use this, there's a terminology that we use in evoke therapy where we talk about wilderness and what it signifies. And I often say wilderness therapy, it's kind of like, it's a metaphor for going into yourself, not to get rid of yourself, but to make space for yourself. That's the idea. And so I hope and I pray during this time, as hard as it is, that each individual has the ability and the access wherever they are, whatever they're privileged or unprivileged of, to be able to go within themselves, to really do some of that trauma work, because that's going to create healing and change for the community around us. While also, obviously, there's systemic change that needs to happen too, but the individual change has to be simultaneously involved in that process. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I can say, because that's the biggest thing that I'm being encouraged of for my own self in that way. But yeah.
I like it. So where can people find you if they want to follow along on your journey? And what are you working on right now that you're really jazzed about?
Oh man, what am I not working on? Jeez. I work a lot. I'm a hard worker, but I also take time for myself. I just got back from a camping trip with my husband. It was great. Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Sadora Wellness. I do a lot of representation of people out in nature, especially people that look like me out in nature. I talk about wilderness therapy and some of the highlights of the work that I do out in the field. Also triunehealthandwellness.com is just a private business practice that I have where I do workshops. I can do speaking arrangements there as well too. I'm actually doing a 5-week workshop for transracial adoption parents. So a parent workshop for white parents who are raising kids of color. We're going to talk about all the things. And so that is on triunehealthandwellness.com. You can sign up for that workshop. It starts on July 20th and runs to August 24th, I believe. Doing that, I'm really excited about that as well. And then on evoketherapy.com, that is also a resource for families that are in crisis right now, for sure. But yeah, that's it.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to hear your story and all the cool stuff you're doing. And if you have time, we'd love for you to stick around for the group gratitude circle. But if you got to split, we get it. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Sydney, for sharing your story and this whole thing. This has just been amazing. And I don't know, I'm just, my spirit feels so good about just you and just all of this. It's awesome.
Thank you. Awesome. Great. That doesn't suck. I'll take it. Fantastic. All right. So up next, we have Miss Buffy Wilde. She is Washington, D.C.'s punk rock princess, and she's here to read some tarot cards. Oh my God, I love you so much. I'm so happy you're here.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I actually also just, if you cannot tell by my crown, I just crawled out of a long weekend also camping in the woods to clear my heart and my mind. So I am very connected, not super jazzed to be back in the metropolis of Washington, D.C. For very obvious reasons, but it's okay. I'm feeling much more glamorous than the sunburn that's under this gorgeous face.
I love it so much. So tell me a little bit about your journey, Miss Buffy. How did you show up here? Where are you from? And what are you going to do with us today?
For sure, yeah. So I am going to be combining two ways that I like to teach people something or make them laugh or whatever it is. One with drag, right? I sort of started doing drag because I think drag queens make everything better, and in a very dark world, I think sometimes we just need to all like chill out, put on a face, put on a wig, and just live your full fantasy because life is entirely too short to do otherwise. I'm reading tarot. You know, it's something that I've always been interested in doing, and as I went on my own wellness journey outside of drag, found that practices like tarot and sort of incorporating that into my life was really, really meaningful for me because I think, you know, tarot. I think a lot of people, I mean, who doesn't love the good, like mystic, like predicting the future, like I am a Celtic wilderness goddess about to tell you everything you could ever want to know about your future. And there's the mystique to it for sure. But I think for me, the tarot is just sort of like the greatest book of wisdom. And in these moments when you're sort of connected to spirit, sort of asking a question, asking for some guidance, they can land you with some guidance. So I like to think of it not as a predictive tool, but a prescriptive tool. And I thought, what better way to sort of wrap up this adventure that you were going on and kicking off this new adventure of building the Wilderness Center than seeing if there's anything that we all need to know here in the cards today.
Yes. So walk me through this because I have tarot decks. I have my app. I've had a few readings, but what do you need from me to give a reading for the Wellness Center?
Right. Well, you definitely can't shuffle this deck. I don't know how we would achieve that.
I can't. I'll just like tap. I'm splitting it. There you go.
I mean, the most important thing I think for me, so what we'll do is we'll do a 1-card spread, right? It just sort of, and it's not really like a yes or no. It's more like a pertinent to the question that you have in your brain and your mind. What is something about that you need to know, whether it's a hint at the destination or something you need to know about the journey to get to the destination. So
yeah,
I know we talked previously, but just so everybody can play along and we can play a group intention game, because I think it'd be great if everybody can have the same intention in mind, because then something maybe even more powerful will come through. So your question is?
what do I need to know about the journey to get to the destination? Because we have the destination picked. So I'm just interested in knowing more about what's coming up for us between now and then.
Yeah, we want to know. So everybody, as I'm shuffling, just take a second, clear your head, right? Put your phone down and start putting your intention around this question, right? The more the merrier of, you know, what do we need to get from here to there, right? What do we need to make this big magical dream come true?
Yes.
You got the mother card. So there's a lot of, this is great. So the mother means a lot of things. The mother is sort of the epicenter of emotional connectedness, emotional maturity, and emotional healing. So things that I really appreciate about this card, right? She has 1 foot in the water. So water in the tarot, the element of water tends to represent the realm of emotions. So I think what's careful to keep in mind about the mother is that she does have 1 foot on solid ground, right? We all kind of have to live in this real material world, but she always has that 1 foot on her emotional pulse. So I think for me, the key thing to keep in mind moving forward is that sort of inner, which I mean, knowing you, I know this is very much already who you are, right? You are on the path to becoming the ultimate mother goddess of emotional wisdom and maturity and sort of nurturing others, right? There's a lot of that in the mother's card as well. But, you know, I think something that's interesting to keep in mind moving forward is that you'll see there's a little, I don't know the name of this weapon. It's like a scythe. I want to say we're going to play that like, how do we pronounce words game? Don't know. I'm just very pretty. But there is a bloody scythe that is sort of bleeding into the pond. And I think what is important to remember about the mother is that although it is sort of ethereal, don't forget that sometimes you got to cut a bitch, right? Like sometimes there are things that that you can't get rid of, right? The children that you can mother, those are great, but the bullies of those children, absolutely not. So I think going forward, keep one foot on solid ground, keep one foot on that emotional pulse that you know so well. Really allow yourself the space to become the mother goddess that you are, that this space will help facilitate, because it will. This card was not in the reverse position. It was in the upright position, which means like full speed ahead, keep on up. There's no warning signs. Just remember, don't forget the little Skype if you need her, because she's right there.
Cut. All right. I love that. And thank you. So I also like that mama's pregnant and hiking my feelings. The center is my baby. That was a comment that Michelle made in the thing. So like, yep. Dig it. Couldn't have been better. Is there anybody in the Zoom chat that would like to have a reading? Because Miss Buffy is extending her services. Okay. Wow. Yes. Okay. Yes. Jess is ready. Michelle and Vicky are ready. Mary's ready. Okay, cool.
You want a tarot reading?
Let's start.
Absolutely.
This is amazing. I'm so happy. Fantastic. Okay, everybody's stoked. All right, let's see what we can get through here with Jess, Michelle, Vicky, Mary, Christine, Gabacha, and Sarah. And also, we also do the post-Zoom chat. So if you don't get served now, if Buffy's available, I'm sure she'd be happy to serve you after we stop the live. So let's go. Jess is up first.
Perfect. Yes, I'm a full service woman. Don't you worry about that. So can I make Jess? Yes, I'll make you big so I can see you. How are you, Jess?
I'm well. How are you?
I am great now that I'm here with you all. I like people to look at me. That's the best part.
I love it. You are fantastic.
You're fantastic.
Thank you.
So start putting something in your brain. You can share it out loud. You can keep it to yourself, right? Sometimes these things are private things that we're wondering, but just start setting your intention, and everybody, even if you don't know what it is, you can still focus and bring your intention to the group, because we got a major arcana last time. So this is a very powerful group. So whatever's been on your mind, it doesn't have to be a specific question. It can be a realm of your life, right? Just something, what's it like a sticky spot?
There's a lot of change right now. So I'm kind of just looking for a little bit of universe insight into the next 30 to 90 days.
So not the super distant future, but the, wow, what do we do with this time we have right now kind of moment.
Yeah.
Sure. One just fell out. Whenever a card falls out, it's always her.
And there's only one card that scares me. So if I manifest it, I'll laugh.
Oh my, wait, I kind of want to know. Now that I know what it is, what's the card that there is no scary cards except the tower. The tower is pretty scary. Don't worry, you did not get the tower. You did not. You got the Druid in reverse.
Wow. Okay.
So the Druid. So you can think of the Druid. He's also known as the Hierophant in a traditional deck, but this is a Celtic deck. So I'm still building my relationship with some of these cards. So I'm going to read from some of the book just to help flesh it out a little bit. The Mother I know, because when you do a lot of readings for yourself, you get a lot of the same cards, and you do readings for other people with different energies.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, Druid, I have not met you in quite some time.
That's one of my favorite books, actually, The Druids by Morgan Llewellyn. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I have to put that on my reading list then. If I'm going to be dealing with the Celts, I gotta step up my game. Yeah, so unfortunately, the answer to your own question lies within yourself, because the Druid is here to communicate that all magic is within each of us, right? And sometimes we like to seek answers out out there, right, from another source, but I think it's important to remember that the source is actually it, right? We learn this in yoga, right? Is that the divine, we are all manifestations of the divine, right? The druid is someone else, but really the druid is you. So the question of how to proceed in the next couple of months, unfortunately, it's only inside of yourself. And because it's upside down, I like to think of a reversal as sort of, Whoopi Goldberg in the movie Ghost doing, you in danger, girl. That's what I always like to see a reverse card, because a reverse card implies that it's going to take you a lot of work to do that. And that when you go inside and start to find these answers that are, and they're, I mean, I've been doing it, and let me tell you, these are not fun answers to find inside of yourself in these times. But the warning exists to say you have to go there. It is your obligation to yourself to do that hard work and find the answer within, because it's not going to come from anywhere else. And I bet if it comes from somewhere else, you're going to go through with it and you're not going to love it very much. So trust that you got it there somewhere.
Thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
All right, Michelle Lee, you're up next.
I'm a little scared asking this one, but I mean, might as well say it here. I was born with a supernatural spiritual connection because of family, what they were involved in, and I guess it's called like a family curse. I've been fighting it off, and I want to see who wins or what's gonna happen, or it's draining and it's an ongoing battle. So I'm just hoping for some answers.
For sure. Thank you for sharing. That's super vulnerable. And
Yeah.
hopefully there will be. So again, it's that question of, where do these things that we don't want to have in our life, how do they resolve or not? The 9 of Swords. So, warning, the swords is not the most fun suit. But let's see where the not fun can lead us. This is not the worst card in the deck of swords, though, and it's not the Tower. So ultimately, you cool. I really get the Tower from this moment on, because you've already heard so many nasty things about her. I promise there's wisdom in the Tower. Okay, so you're gonna not love but totally love this. So the 9 of Swords, it's a pretty vivid image, so I don't really have to say much, but the 9 of Swords tends to represent ultimate suffering, right? It's literally, she is just trying to sit here in bed, but she is naked, she is vulnerable, she's trying to surround herself with flowers, but the knives are just coming in all around her, right? But it came in the reversed position, which means that there are some of these things that are in your head, and that the only way to break out of that is to break out of the traps that are all in your mind. There are things outside of yourself that you can't control, but the way out of this is all between your 2 ears, which sounds like a cop-out, but don't take it up with me, take it up with the spirits. But the nine of Swords in reversed is a reminder that sometimes, it's kind of think of it literally, right? You see the card up, right? There's all these, the swords are on top of her, right? But then reverse, she's on top of the swords, right? And I think that's the important metaphor here, is that you can get on top of it and you can get yourself out of it, but you can't rely on other people to do it. And you can't sweat the stuff you can't control, but you got to do the work to unlock all of that inside your head, because the swords, it's like, I imagine literally like your brain has swords in it, right? And there might be swords outside of yourself too, but the only person who can take those swords out of your own brain are yourself. So you got to it's going to be anguish, but the good news is once you do it, you've done it. So you just got to do it. Just don't resent it for not being fun.
Yeah, no, it's been an ongoing process for years. So yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's painful. It's painful to get it to stop. But thank you so much for this.
And we got your back, so you're good. Everybody here is like, hey girl, hey, we got you. Ain't no big deal.
Right. And you have a community to support you as you're pulling out those swords out of your own head, right? You need someone to like take the
Like,
sword.
hand me that. Yeah, take it. Give it to me. And then I'll throw that one away so you can get on to the next one. Just pass them. Don't try to hold all of them at once.
Thank you.
The mother with the bloody scythe, so she'll take all your bloody weapons. Do not worry.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Vicky, you're up next.
Hello, Miss Buffy.
Hello, how are you?
So, not bad, not bad. I'm very excited to be serviced by you. So my concerns are around work and income. Yeah.
Oh, the joys of work. For sure.
Well, I have none, and I'd like some.
Dude,
But not work that I hate, and I also don't know whether, like, I'm trying to decide if I should just do something to make some goddamn money, or whether I should be spending my time trying to forge a path that will ultimately be both fulfilling and, you know, I don't need to be lighting, you know what I mean. I don't need to be lighting cigars with $100 bills, but
those
I do need to feed my dog.
Pay for themselves. No, totally. Well, let's see. So we have the 10 of Shields in reverse, but I'll show you the pretty version first. So right on the nose, the shields is the element of earth, which has to deal, it's the suit of material possessions and work, right? The sort of manifesting of desire. So I'm going to consult the book, but some good things I already see. There's a rainbow outside of the window, so there is good things coming. Let's see which direction the 10 of Shields in reverse wants to take you. Okay, so what, so yeah, so there, when this card is in reversed, really what it's communicating is a lot of what you've kind of sort of revealed to us is this idea of feeling unstable, right? Feeling materially threatened, like not feeling financially stable specifically, right? And that these feelings are clouding your judgment, but not in reversed. The 10 of Shields is the card that is trying to communicate with you that this is about legacy, right? That what we leave is really, really, really important. So do not let your sense of instability prevent you from pursuing your legacy. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
heavy. And on point. Thank you.
No, of course.
All right, Christine.
Hello, nice to meet you, Miss Buffy Wilde. So, I first just want to say, like, 'cause it's gonna sound, it feels superficial a little bit, but I know it's important to me, so it's important. My life is fulfilled in so many ways. I am grateful, grateful, grateful for all of it. But one of the things that I am a hole in my life is I'm looking for a little bit of picture and guidance on love and relationships.
That's important. No need to apologize for not complaining about. I'm literally, like, my entire career is complaining about men. You know what I mean? Like, no, complain all you want. That's some real trauma shit right there. It's fine. It's fine. They didn't like me as a boy, so I became the most beautiful woman in the world.
Nailed it.
But let's see. Now, is there things on the horizon that you're worried about or wondering about, or is it just the prospect period?
It's the prospect period, right? It's the open-endedness that I feel.
This one's also for
Scary.
me. Don't worry.
It's the tower, isn't it?
No, thank God. But it's an odd one, so let's try to get to the bottom of it. I swear to God, I'm so sorry again if anybody gets the tower. But this is the card of justice.
Oh.
Ooh.
Right, but there's some nuance to her, don't worry. So let's get to the bottom of what justice has to do with this question.
Why am I so nervous?
No, this is just a card, right? You know, sometimes I really hope it's not true. Okay, so justice is about personal responsibility. So if you want, you can have what you want, right? Inevitably, justice is what happens, right? At the end of the day, we all die. I guess that's some weird form of justice, right? But the only way for you to get what you want is if you take personal responsibility to get it yourself, right? Often we can't rely on other people for justice, right? We certainly can't rely on institutions. We can't rely on government. The only person you can rely on for justice is yourself. So that is a reminder that if that's something if you truly desire that, great. But you have to take personal responsibility to take the steps to get it, because no, justice isn't going to happen unless you do it. Does that make sense?
Total sense, actually. Yeah, total sense.
Balanced. I mean, the good news is it's upright, so no warnings here. And there is, right, he's holding the sword, he's holding the balance scale. So there's also a part of me that feels like if you do seek out this kind of relationship, you will get the balance that you seek, especially if you feel imbalanced without having that kind of thing in your life, then having it will probably create that balance, right? Or if you feel balanced and you don't want to set the balance, then maybe it's okay to keep the balance going for a little bit longer without bringing in a new.
Okay, no, that actually makes total sense. That's so weird and so cool. Makes total sense.
Good. I'm glad. Sometimes it's weird reading other people's tarot because you're like, I don't know your story, so I'm trying to and hope it works.
Yeah, no, this fits.
Perfect. Well, I hope it works out. I can't wait to see what happens.
I'll keep you posted.
Thank you so much.
Yay. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to chat with Jess for our Hiking My Feelings family chat, and then we'll do the group gratitude circle, and then we'll do more tarot. So I wrote down, I have a note of who was already on the screen, and then if anybody else that's in the chat wants to join afterwards, we'll have time for that. So Jess, hi, Hiking My Feelings family. Buffy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your wisdom and everything you're serving us. We are so grateful, and I look forward to more readings in a little bit.
I will. Thank you all for having me. I hope the spirits.
Yes, thank you. No, they're all good.
Hello.
All right. Hey. How are you?
I'm good. I was debating whether I was going to go speaker view or gallery view, and I decided to go speaker view. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. So tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and why you're here.
So my name is Jess Fiedler. I'm originally from Long Beach, California. I was raised Long Beach and then Catalina Island and Avalon. Go Lancers. And why am I here? I'm here to become the fullest expression of myself as possible. And if by doing so, there is a happy side effect of being able to positively change the world or for the better, or change one person's life for the better in my process and my unfolding, then that's why I'm here. I've had lofty dreams. I've had huge dreams. I want to do this, I want to do that. And if those come to pass, that would be amazing. But at the end of the day, if I can change one person's life just by being myself and being as genuine as possible, that's why I'm here.
I love that so much. You have been bringing like the most wonderful shares to the group gratitude circle. Like I don't even know if there's a question to this other than that, like every time you share what you're grateful for, it's like either a history lesson, a cultural lesson, or just like some really deep glance into your soul. Like where do you come up with this stuff? Like I know obviously like it's within you, but like what's your spiritual life like? Because I feel like you're one of the most grounded and spiritual people in this circle right now, for sure.
Thank you first, because that's just about, I'm already crying. That's about the highest compliment anybody can give me, honestly. So thank you.
Yeah.
So there's a few answers there. One, there's an implied question to there's the why are you bringing it? You don't even have to get on camera. So why are you bringing it, Jess? And the why on that is I've made it a point in my life at this stage in my life, and I feel badly at times that I haven't utilized platforms in the past as much as I could have. But today I have access to platforms. I have access to your platform through your live stream and your Campfire. And I decided a couple of days in just to utilize it to spread messages of hope, to spread messages of vulnerability and sharing, so that maybe somebody watching at 3 o'clock in the morning, vibes, and maybe it helps them in some way. And sharing causes and sharing information about things that sometimes I just am learning about. And so I definitely get excited and get really passionate about wanting to share them with others. So that's the answer to the implied question. Spiritually, it's kind of a trip. It's a trip. So I have to start with my grandfather, because my grandfather, when he was alive, was a mystic. When I knew him as a little kid, he was grandfather. He made really good apple waffles, and he was married to my grandmother, and we had childhood memories. But at a certain point, he moved to Arizona by himself and to follow his path. And I didn't know what that meant until I got older and found out your grandfather is a mystic. But like the bedtime stories I had were things like, there's a universal consciousness that we can all tap into, and that we can all expand just by expanding our own consciousness and our own beliefs and our own energy fields. It pushes against other people's, and it widens that collective consciousness or energy. And it's like, now go to bed. I'm going to tuck you in, and
And you're like,
grateful for that. Yeah. And then flash forward, my father has his own, he vibes closer to my grandfather's belief system than his mother's. My grandmother, when she was alive, was a very staunch Catholic, but she was very open-minded about other belief systems. And my mom is a very devout Christian, and she's open as well. And then I started exploring at a very young age. I discovered Wicca at 12 and was really passionate about that. I got even older and just was trying a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then I went to college. I decided, I was in business school and I was crying. I was so bored, because the whole point was like, make money, crush the little guy, repeat. And it was just too easy and I couldn't handle it. And then I discovered philosophy and this academic study of religion. And I am probably going to die with my student loans, still attached to me from that endeavor. But it forever changed my life, because I committed my life to my spirituality, to my spiritual path, or at least for 4 years of it every day. But it sparked a critical thinking in my mind, and it sparked a spiritual revolution in my mind. And I'm just grateful, because I grew up surrounded by really spiritually conscious people my whole life. I mean, I've had tarot cards I've had my own set of tarot cards since I was 16. I've been collecting crystals, not because they're pretty, but because they have, you know, energy fields that help us since I was 12. So I believe in a lot of stuff. I lean a little bit more towards Buddhist nowadays, but I still step on cockroaches.
So is there anything that's on your heart and mind? Because like you are just like, you're one of the most thoughtful people I know. And just to like share some reflection, like you're one of like, there's a short list of people in my life that when they show up, I'm like, fuck yeah. Cause like, you know what I mean? Like where it's just like, where I feel like people are thinking about me as much as I think about them. Like you're one of those people. So what's going on in your world? What's on your heart and mind that you want to share or offer to the community or anything? Because like I feel like asking the basic interview questions is robbing you of an opportunity to like just speak, because I really love everything you have to say most of the time. So like the floor is yours if there's anything that's going on like with Jess that you'd like to share or offer up, because I'm done.
I love you. So I actually, to prepare for this, I actually was skimming the back of your book and the questions there. And the one that actually has really inspired me and has put me on the path, like this path where I'm on right now, was what do you want people to say about you after you're gone? And, you know, at your funeral, at your memorial. And the first time I wrote the answer to that, I was like, I'm a philosophy professor. I'm teaching at a university. I discovered some cool theory. Nobody refuted me, you know, and I was just on one. And that upset me. That really upset me after I wrote that. I was so upset with myself. So I've been really sitting with this one. And the next one I wrote was for your Hiking My Feelings family interview series questionnaire. And then in that one, I was like, okay, so I'm a published author. I'm on my second or third book. I do a lot of art. I'm living in Hawaii. I've got a view of the ocean. I've got nature around me. I'm watching the love of my life sleep and snore, and the rhythm of their snoring makes me just so happy and content, and I'm at peace. And that was just, I just free floated. I didn't even copy paste it and save it for myself in a Word doc. I just typed the whole interview and then just hit send and went, I hope she likes it. And that led me to digging deeper and saying, what do I want to be? What was Jess when she died? And, you know, there's the typical things of, she was a good daughter. She was a good mother. Because I have children that are adults now, and that's been rough. I've not always been the most spiritually evolved person, but, you know, good mother, good daughter, good sister, good friend, all that good stuff. That it's just sort of boilerplate. We should be a good person in general. So what do I want to be besides being a good person in general? I want to be a thriving artist. And that, because my whole life I've been artistic, and my whole life I've had this mixed message from various people of pursue your dreams, but not for a living. And that's just, I internalized that. I internalized a lot of advice, so that the tarot card reading of the answers are within yourself. Stop looking outside. It was just like, as you know, as they'd say in church, convicted. I was convicted by that card. So, because I do a lot of searching outside to find out who I need to be, but at the end it is there. And so what I did with I want to be an artist and I want to be a thriving artist is I finally sat down and did something I've wanted to do for a while. And I put all my artwork into one spot. And it's not even all my artwork, because I have so much more that I just need to put digitally. And I created my website, Shark Harbor Sunset. And that was based off of my Instagram handle, Shark Harbor Sunset, because growing up in Catalina, one of my favorite places in the world is Shark Harbor at sunset on the backside of the island. You sit there, you're just so alone in the world and you can't see anything for miles. There's just nothing. And it's peace. It's peace incarnate. And so anyways, on my website, I'm starting to put up my photography. I'm even watermarking it, which is just blowing my mind, learning how to do that. And I started a podcast, an interview series per se, because it's multimedia, and that's called Speak Your Truth. And I'm doing something similar to what you're doing, just offering a platform for people to speak their truth. And sometimes I'll provide questions as a guideline, like, hey, I might hit you with this, or I might hit you with that, just to give them the gist of what it's about. But in general, the platform's there, just like what you're doing for me right now. That's exactly what I strive to do there, because I'm a people person and I love people. And that's more like a hobby though, because it's artistic, but I didn't know how much fun I would have just interviewing people. I'd literally been scrolling through my friends list like, oh yeah, you write books. Oh yeah, you do multimedia art. Oh my gosh, you've traveled the world and you live in another country. And it's so much fun. So I want to write my book. My therapist, I finally broke down and admitted that I want therapy. Not that I need therapy, but that I want therapy. And there are people out there that will stress the need part about, oh no, Jess needs therapy. There is a certain fan club of that. But honestly, I want therapy because I'm trying to do too much right now. And my therapist is like, chill, you got a website, you're doing your photographs, you're trying to help other people with their dreams. Like I'm going on almost 4 months not drinking alcohol, which is a huge change for me. And I just wrote about it, and I'm writing like crazy. LMFTjournal.com just published 3 of my articles this week, and I just started writing this week. And they even gave me an editor. I don't know if that's normal, but it's kind of blowing my mind. And so yeah, I want to be a thriving artist. So that's what I'm about right now. And I'm about integration. That was another question on there that stuck out to me. Is there any part of yourself that you feel you need to integrate or you want to integrate? And when I was 12 till about 21, I was in the Renaissance Fair, and I was an actress, and we did improv and singing and historical reenactment. And it was just living the life for 9 months a year, every single weekend, traveling up and down the coast of California, inland, everywhere, unpacking. And I was known as Greensleeves, or Greenie for short. And there's a lot of people that don't even know my real name that might even be watching this and go, oh my God, that's Greensleeves. And that's what's so cool. I miss that part of me. I want to reintegrate Greenie back into Jess, because I got so freaking serious for a few years there and chased the rat race and did the damn thing. And I had the picket fence and I burnt it down. And I gave birth to the two children. Check. A boy and a girl. Check. Society, I did everything you want me to do, and I'm 42 years old, and guess what? It didn't work. It is my time. It is my life. I'm here to be me, and that is the thing I got to tell anybody that's watching that might be getting inspired for 30 seconds. That might suck for a little while, because to be me, I may have to make sacrifices. I may have to do this. I may have to do that. Might have to put in really long hours, to achieve my dreams, or work 2 jobs, or just hustle or grind. But if it's worth it, it's worth it. And that's what I'm about right now. I'm on that grind. I'm embracing the grind. So.
Yes. Embrace the shit out of it. I love it. So we're going to start moving into the group gratitude circle. But before we do that, where can people find you, and where can people find you if they want to follow along on your journey?
Sure. Yeah. So on my website, sharkharborsunset.com, I have there's links to just about everything I'm doing on there. And
Perfect.
that I want to share. And then also on Instagram, I'm at Shark Harbor Sunset. So, and I'm on Facebook. I'm branded Shark Harbor Sunset.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, if anybody in the Zoom chat wants to hop on for the group gratitude circle, Barry's actually going to kick us off. So I just need to find out where he is. Where's Barry? There he is. Barry's ziplining. Barry is ziplining to the group gratitude circle. Hey, mister. Is that fun?
Oh yeah. It's not a party unless the space trolley's running.
All right. So now everybody gets to see Mr. Williams' face because he's been hiding a little bit during this whole thing. So what are you thankful for?
So I got
you get to kick it off.
I'm a man of few words, so I'll try and make this as brief as possible, but I'm thankful for you.
Aww.
Because in retrospect, it took us 9 months to orchestrate this Chicago thing. 9 months. And you turned around and put this together with 60 something guests or whatever in 30 days. So I think it probably would have been easier to walk 220 miles around Chicago than pull this off. So thankful for this amazing human right here. The other thing I'm thankful for, the word of the day is synergy, because I don't think what I do would be possible without her. I don't think what she does would be possible without me. And I certainly know what we do wouldn't be possible without Dustin and Sue here at the Reggae Ranch. And what we do, what they do wouldn't be possible without us. And what we do wouldn't be possible with everybody here on the call, on the YouTube, wherever you're catching it. And so it's just, we're trying to make the world a better place, and it all starts in here, each individually. And what's happening, we're getting this ripple effect. So I'm thankful for synergy. So that's the deal.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks
Proud
for
of
being
you.
here.
Yeah.
Proud of me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. Aww. Cute. Jess, what are you thankful for?
I am thankful for the moment in my life when one, that y'all were like, let's go on a hike. And then when I whined, you said, no, really, let's go on a hike. And I'm grateful for the moment that we started talking and you looked over at me and said, I think you're numbing your trauma, Jess, or it sounds like you're numbing your trauma, Jess, because putting a name to it just rocked me to my core. And now I'm putting a name to everything. I'm sort of like obsessed with it. And I'm able to have these trauma spectacles on where I kind of hear differently when people are talking. So I'm really grateful for that new set of vision to hear deeper and to ask better questions and to pause and react and say, I'm sorry that you had to go through that before I try to solve the problem. And so I am really grateful you helped me name my trauma.
Thank you. Aw, I'm glad we did too, because you've been crushing it. Jason, what are you thankful for?
Hey, there's two things I guess I'm gonna say I am thankful for, and they kind of tie into each other. So number one, looking at this neato hat I got on, I'm thankful for this book and for this virtual campfire. Following along, I had to catch up on a couple that I missed, but now I can officially say by the time this is over, I've joined in on all 20. I never thought I would ever connect so personally with your book, and even more so the experience that you had, which ties me into the second thing I wanted to get into as far as what I'm grateful for today. And I kind of knew, because I've read the book 3 times. I read this version twice, and then I got gifted on Christmas a second copy, so I obviously had to read that. But I knew that every time I would get to the epilogue, something would crack. just here. So I figured, you know, I'm gonna hear that epilogue being read out to me while I'm reading the words from Miss Sydney Williams herself. So I kind of had to go to a place where it would totally make sense for me. So I'm gonna show you where I'm at. And do you see what that's there in the distance?
Yep, that's Catalina, my friend.
Yeah, I am in San Pedro right now. And I'm kind of around like the Point Fermin area at one of the pull-offs. I've been here for the last couple hours while you read the book, while I listened to everybody telling your story about this journey on the Trans-Catalina Trail, and my story connecting the dots in a lot of ways started there too. Interestingly enough, that was the first time I had actually set foot on that island and I walked across it. Interestingly enough, before that, I've spent many a time in and around this area fucked up with my friends. So in this weird sense, like coming here to stare at this island in, you know, so to speak, a group setting. This is one of my first times out here staring at this spot sober. So as far as my journey is concerned, where I'm at right now, talking to you, reading this book, which just, dear God, I don't think I can ever connect with the book like this in my life. I will say that. If I find it, I'll let you know. But considering where I'm at and all of that, I kind of wanted to especially be out here kind of so that when this book concluded on this virtual campfire, that's kind of like part of my gratitude to you and Barry. So
Thank you.
thank you for you guys.
Thankful for you. Thank you so much, Jason. Gabaccio, what are you thankful for?
Hi.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
Today I am just grateful for feeling calm after a couple of weeks of being in a roller coaster emotionally. So yeah, I'm just grateful for calmness, and I'm grateful for our capacity to have conversations that help us grow and be a little better than we were even minutes ago. So also thank you for this space. This is such a treat to be able to be on the last campfire with all of you. So thanks.
Thank you. Michelle, what are you thankful for?
This one's a big one. I'm thankful for, as many of you know, I'm a woman of faith. I'm thankful that my prayers are getting answered. With the church, I'm currently involved with a class called Regeneration. Our last class was this past Tuesday. It helps you process all your trauma and all that with the help of scripture and God. And I felt like I needed something in combination with that to help me get through everything that I've been through. And after nights and nights of prayer, I stumble across your book. I stumble across this group. And I'm so thankful that God put your book and this group in my path, because now I have the perfect combo with his word and you guys to help me get through this. So that's what I'm thankful for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, what are you thankful for?
I'm grateful tonight for you, Sydney. Your book, this Campfire series, the Read and Reflect, I'm a better person, a better mom, thanks to you and what you've accomplished and everything that you've brought together. So I hope to be able to repay that someday. I really can't tell you enough what an impact that your work has had on my life so far, just in the last few months. So just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Victoria?
Hello.
Hi.
Today I'm really thankful for this series. Over the past 20 days, like every day I've found myself needing something, and I found it every night on a campfire. So thank you, Sydney and Barry, for putting this together, and thank you guys all for making this a comfortable and sharing space. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Vicky, what are you thankful for?
Today I am grateful for hope. That's it's been a hard one for me sometimes. And I've found, as others have said, this tonight, or this event, this whole entire event, and Read and Reflect, and, everything I've done with you. But specifically, I can feel like shit and come on here and I feel better at the end. And so what I've been doing over here, in my face is the word legacy that Buffy gave me with the card is hugely meaningful. And the other one that I scribbled down for next time is synergy. And so, yeah.
I love it. Laura, what are you thankful for?
I am thankful for the friendships that have formed with everyone in this group. And for you all being extended family for me, especially during these hard times. And I'm also grateful for really ripe bananas that can be transformed into banana nut bread. I baked
Yes!
before this meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jennifer, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful first that I stumbled upon this at a time when I really needed it during quarantine. I think you've done such a good job with putting everything together and last minute, from the webpage to the marketing to the guests you've had. I've learned so many different tips. I was dealing with some things and I wasn't finding answers, and I found so many good resources and answers. And but especially for all of you, just for sharing your stories and your vulnerabilities. I'm not really good at sharing things, but like hearing other people talk about things has really helped me like think about having, taking the time and the vulnerability to open up from my end too. And so all of you have just given me such good tips and such good hope. And, I just thank all of you for sharing everything at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you. Miss Judith, what are you thankful for?
I am thankful for, I don't know, humanity. Honestly, just you guys. And I know I don't know, you guys very well or anything like that, but I think, I don't know, I just thank God for just like the connections that we can have with people, no matter the background, and how that's healing in a lot of ways. Like, I've just watched too many things and read too many things. And I don't know, I just feel like I'm in this season of like seeing just love be manifested in such deep ways, even simultaneously while there's a lot of hate. And it's just makes me super hopeful. And so I'm just thankful for the good in humanity when it's seen. And I just hope that it's louder than anything else.
And I think people like you guys have the ability to make that louder than all the negative and all the horrible things. So I'm just super thankful for meeting people. And you, Sydney, thank you for sharing your story, and just, yeah, this is awesome.
Yay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Miss Buffy Wilde, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for so many things, but I think what's top of my mind is because I just got back from 4 days in a cabin with a very, very dear friend of mine. And we just unplugged for 4 days. We loved ourselves. We loved on each other. We smoked a lot of weed. We rolled around in the grass. We played in the lake. And I think I am grateful for giving myself the gift of surrounding myself with people who see me and love me and all the parts of me. And I think, you know, as a tarot reading drag queen witch creature, you know, I'm not always the most popular person in a room, believe it or not. And so I'm grateful to be in rooms where maybe I am at least your top 10. So to my friend who I spent the weekend with, and to you all tonight, I'm just grateful that everybody has been showing me love, that I think we can all show each other a lot more love these days.
Absolutely. Andy Swindler, what are you thankful for? Maybe the next one. Andy, we'll come back to you. Sarah, Sandy, what are you thankful for? Sarah.
Say Sarah.
Yeah. I said Sandy, but I'm Sarah.
I was like, who is Sandy? I'm thankful for reggae music and the work. Because without, and also this clear lens of sobriety, because without that, I wouldn't have started the work. And the reggae music just like brings everybody together. So this weekend, my friend who's been struggling a lot with his sobriety, I was able to take him around my new group of friends. And he said like his anxiety was like at a low being around new people, which is crazy because we were just like blasting stick. He was like, I think it was just that melody, you know, it just calmed me down. And we had a lot of like deep conversations, and a lot of the things I was telling him was like stuff from your book and the stuff that I've been uncovering with the work. And it's just great to see it come full circle, that I'm able to help other people and share these parts of my life. And also it helps me to feel like I'm on the right path. So I'm just really thankful for all of that. And
yes,
I got.
So good. Andy's back. Andy, what are you thankful for?
Reliable internet connections. I'm thankful for being out in a perfect Chicago day, and that all the protests that I attended remained peaceful. And I'm extremely grateful for spaces like this where we can be real. And I'm thankful it's my mom's birthday tomorrow.
Fantastic. Happy birthday, Mom.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. We appreciate you and your support. Thank you so much. Christine Sherinian, what are you thankful for?
You're in
trouble.
My full name, I'm in trouble. You didn't use my middle name. So first and foremost, my grateful is for you, like your friendship and being able to, you know, I feel like super special that I've gotten to like have this friendship over the last 5 years, and it's been amazing. So that's my obviously grateful, but I'll still want to say it because it's always good to say in here, right? The other grateful I have is something I'm thinking about a lot. It's throwback to Doc Peace. I'm super thankful for mirrors, right? Because they allow us to look at ourselves and see what we're made of, what we're about. It contributes to self-awareness. And I think like in these times when so much shit is going on and we don't know what we feel, how to feel, what to do about it, how we can make things better, how we can just be happy with ourselves, mirrors help us do that. Like looking at ourselves, looking at the people around us, because the people around you serve as mirrors too, in my eyes, right? Like bouncing things, reflecting things off of people here, reflecting things off your friends, your family. It only helps you become the best version of yourself. And so I'm super grateful for mirrors.
Yes, that is so good. Oh, Lydia is showing her face. This is Barry's mom. Hello. She hasn't done it the whole time, and now we get to see her. I'm so excited.
Hi, you guys. I love you so much. You know, I'm not one to really speak out, but, you know, I've enjoyed these 20 meetings and campfires and got to know some really wonderful people and hearing their stories and sharing and listening. And oh, yes, I love it. Thank you. I love you guys. I'm thankful that you are safe and sound because I was so worried in the beginning. You've done well. Keep it up, guys. I love you. And I love the group. Thank you. I wish there was more.
Stay tuned.
Okay. All right.
And last but certainly not least, Miss Linda Rubin. It's lovely to see your face. What are you thankful for?
A lot, but I'm going to do it without crying. And Lydia, it's so nice to see your face, the other mom. I consider myself the mom.
Yes.
You know what, guys? Grateful to all of you and this platform. And you know what, honestly, Sydney and Barry, I love you guys. I am grateful that I can sit here and watch all of this, witness this, as some of you were sharing all your new journeys and your what I like to call, you know, rewriting your dash, you know, and I get to witness the dash being played out by Sydney and Barry. And for that, I am truly grateful because they are a part of my dash, and all of you tonight are a part of my dash. And I am a person of faith. God bless you. And I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
We love you too. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you, Linda.
Woo! All right. Well, we've got some thank yous ourselves. So Barry said what he's thankful for. I'm going to put what I'm thankful for up on the screen. So bear with me because I've got a lot of names to read. So first of all, I want to thank our donors, because without you, this wouldn't be possible. The Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center will not build itself. I am not independently wealthy. I do not have this money just sitting around. So thank you to Mark Rickmeyer, Jason Hoves, Lydia Williams, Janelle Cooley, Crystal Abbott, Melanie and Kaleo Wassman, Liz Rangel, Craig McKnight, Lori Lanoy, Melissa Crane, Anthony Obregon, Cindy Olson, Christine Smith, Jennifer Elmore, Aaron Espinosa, Laura, Jess Fiedler, Vicky Otero, Sarah Funches, Andy Swindler, Christine Shrinian, Jessica Fiedler again, you're welcome, and Amanda Dulong, Michelle Farias, Christy Tarsha, Laura Bingaman, Jennifer Alechko. Sorry if I'm butchering your names, guys. I love you anyway. Marie Hedenberg Kenny, Melissa Anderson, Lauren Yarnell, Kathy Galvin, Victoria Amico, Linda Rubin, Mary Remanowski, Gabachia, Allison Brett, Amy Liseski, Caitlin Pennington, Corey Ganser, Ela Clemente, Margot Clemente, Valerie Otero, Denise Grzanich, John Colgazer, Denise Grzanich again, Colleen Rice, Shayna Rowley, Francis Clemente, and Julio Cesar Reyes Mesa. And I'd like to thank our sponsors, because without their support, this would not be possible either. So thank you to Table XI and Walk Shop, Hula Cloth, Salomon, Sundrench Vibes, Breakthrough Play, Sway Candles, Crucial Crystals, Spell Botanicals, Finest City Improv, Joyful Juniper Creative, The Outdoor RD, and Feel Real, which is where Andy's coming from. And last thank you is to all of our guests. So over the course of this whole thing, my intention was to bring together some of the people that have inspired my healing journey, some of the people that have made my life easier, and people that just I admire from afar or right up front, whether I've known these people for 30 seconds since they got on this call or for my entire life. These people have been really, really important in making this happen, because if we didn't have guests, then I doubt anybody would show up to listen to me chat for 20 days by myself. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Catherine Osborne, Will Acuna Robinson, Chloe Kreider, Ashler Noda, Mark Rickmeyer, Linda Rubin, Sensi Trails, Christine Sherinian, Hannah Betts, Kay Bong, Sarah, Tyler Curley, Amanda Dulong, Kaleo and Melanie Wassman, Michelle and Kenya Jackson Salters, Nicholas Dell, Mindy and Tiffany Lockhart, Brendan Clemente, Vicky Otero, Doc Peace, Kat Humphus, Julianne Mahoney, Jason Hoves, Josh Kelly, Christine Smith, Zion I, Anastasia Allison, Jenna Selmer, Gabachia, Aaron Strout, Carlos Berus, Dr. Thema Bryant Davis, Becca Alared, Pete Olson, Laura Bingaman, Amy Liseski, Michelle Leroy, Catherine Getsky, Kyle Smith, Melissa Gessinger, Gary Ware, Shanti Hodges, Marionette Adefrin, Sue Shaw, Natalie Rise, Serena, Christina Italic, Victoria Amico, Aaron Wolf, Emily Hopshin, Grizel, the late ones, Jay Reddy, and tonight, Judith Sadora, Miss Buffy Wilde, and Jess Fiedler. So thank you guys so much for being part of this, for making this come true, all of these dreams. We could not do this without the guests. And I think that's all I have for those things. Yes, so if you're watching on Facebook, if you found any value in this at all over the course of this event, or if you're watching this on YouTube when we upload it later, or if you're here in the room and you are feeling extra fancy, we are launching our crowdfunding campaign to keep the momentum going. So far, we've raised $8,020, unless we raised money while I was doing this broadcast tonight. That was the count before we started tonight. So our crowdfunding campaign is hosted with classy.org. It's a fundraising campaign for nonprofits all over the place. So give.classy.org/hikingmyfeelings. You can do a one-time donation, whatever amount you want to, and we also have tiers. So if you're interested in donating to keep the momentum going and help us raise money to open the Wellness Center, our first round of the first goal that we're trying to meet is $30,000 to build the community hub and the deck that it goes on. And then the full project is coming in around $100,000. So we have the full project goal on the crowdfunding site. So tell your friends, tell your family, if you found value in this, if you think that other people could benefit from it, share the videos, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like anything you guys can do can help us. This is the first time where we've been able to breathe a little bit easier. And granted, all of this money is going to construction, but it just feels good to not be scared about money financially for the health of this organization. When we had to cancel our entire tour, the Sunday after we did that, I showed up to our Read and Reflect session and I just ugly cried the whole time because I didn't know how we were going to make it through it. And because of you guys, everybody that's on this call, everybody that's donated, everybody that is following us and supporting us in whatever way, shape, or form, your energy is so appreciated, and we could not do what we do without you guys, and all we want to do is make the world a better place. So if that's something that you're into, you can donate at give.classy.org/hikingmyfeelings. And as a reminder from this event, any donations that are still made today, those will go towards the total, where we're splitting out 10% to go to the American Diabetes Association and 10% to go to RAINN, which is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. So thank you guys for everything. We literally couldn't do any of this without you, and we are just so appreciative. Did I forget anything?
Stay tuned. We got more coming.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. I think that's all we can talk about for now. I could talk till I die, so I'm going to stop doing that. But if you're on Facebook, we're going to wave goodbye. If you're on the Zoom and you want to stick around for more tarot cards, you're more than welcome to do so. So thank you guys so much for everything. We are so appreciative. Thank you to you.
Thank you to you.
Thank you to you. Thank you, Sue and Dustin.
Yay!
Thank you, Reggae Ranch. Thank you, kids, for letting me steal your Wi-Fi for 2 hours a night every day for 20 days. I love you guys. Awesome. We love you. All right, guys. Awesome. So if you're on Facebook, peace. If you're not, we're still hanging out. So bye.